Greetings, greetings. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. I believe we can begin. Greetings, good morning, good afternoon, and for those it's early evening, early good evening as well to folks from all across the globe. My name is Patricia Mupeta. I am the current Vice President of the ICCA Consortium. I am currently based in the home and territories of the Khoisan people here in the southwestmost part of Africa. I am sitting in Cape Town. It's great to see our family and friends from all across the world. So I believe we're going to have a great session today. I believe our interpretation team have been giving us some guidance on how the session will run. I am chairing this first hour of today's session, and I will lead us through a few aspects of our agenda, and then I will hand over to my colleague, Colin Scott, who will lead the last part of the session. We are co-hosting this together with our able Secretariat, Holly and her great team. Thank you for all the amazing work that you continue to do to support the consortium. I wanted to just share that our president, Teddy, is unfortunately ill. He fell ill. He was out in the field last week and isn't able to join us today. He was hoping to join, but he's had a terrible bout of some flu and some diarrhea. So please send him some lovely positive energy. Fantastic. So I think to get us going, I'd like us to first start our session by having an opening ceremony by Kinohi Fukumitsu.
Patricia, I'm super sorry to interrupt.
No worries.
We just need to have Gaëlle and the others explain the interpretation in the different languages. If we can just give a moment for Gaëlle and the others to do that. So sorry to interrupt. Thanks.
Not at all, Holly. And please feel free to interrupt me as and when. So Gaëlle, please over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. So for today's event, we have interpretation in English, Spanish, French, Italian and Russian. Please make sure you select the English channel in order to access the interpretation. And if you are using a computer, click on the globe icon that says interpretation on the toolbar below. Or if you are using the Zoom app on your phone or tablet, click on the 3 dots, then English, then done. Interpretation is not available on Chromebook or Linux devices. Please mute your mic when you're not speaking. And we ask all presenters to speak slowly and clearly, especially if you're reading. You can select the option Mute Original Audio to hear the interpretation better during the videos and audios in other languages than English. If you have any problem with interpretation, let us know in the chat. And thank you so much for helping to create this multilingual space. Pour l'événement d'aujourd'hui, donc bonjour à toutes et à tous, nous disposons d'une interprétation en anglais, espagnol, français, russe et italien. Veillez à sélectionner le canal français pour accéder à l'interprétation. Donc si vous utilisez un ordinateur, vous pouvez cliquer sur l'icône en forme de globe qui dit interprétation dans la barre d'outils ci-dessous. Ou si vous utilisez l'application Zoom sur votre téléphone ou tablette, vous pouvez cliquer sur les 3 petits points, puis français, puis OK. L'interprétation n'est pas disponible sur les appareils Chromebook ou Linux. Veuillez aussi veiller à couper votre micro lorsque vous ne parlez pas et nous vous demandons à tous les présentateurs de parler lentement et clairement, surtout si vous lisez. Vous pouvez sélectionner l'option couper l'audio original pour mieux entendre l'interprétation pendant les vidéos ou les audios qui sont dans d'autres langues que le français. Si vous rencontrez un problème avec l'interprétation, veuillez nous en faire part dans le chat. Merci de nous aider à créer cet espace multilingue. I will now pass to Daniela for Spanish, then Marco for Italian, and Ibek for Russian, and then we'll start. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaëlle. Gracias, Gaëlle. Hola a todos. Para el evento de hoy tenemos interpretación en inglés, español, francés, ruso e italiano. Por favor, asegúrese de seleccionar el canal en español para poder usar la interpretación. Si utiliza un computador, haga clic en el icono del globo terráqueo que dice Interpretación en la barra de herramientas que está abajo de su pantalla. Si utiliza la aplicación Zoom en su teléfono o en una tableta, haga clic en los 3 puntos, luego en español y luego en Listo. La interpretación no está disponible en dispositivos Chromebook o Linux. Por favor, silencie su micrófono cuando no esté hablando. Les pedimos a todos los presentadores que hablen despacio y con claridad, especial si están leyendo. Puede seleccionar la opción Silenciar audio original para escuchar mejor la interpretación durante videos y audios en idiomas que no sean el español. Si tiene alguna dificultad con la interpretación, por favor, cuéntenos por el chat. Y muchas gracias por ayudarnos a crear este espacio multilingüe. Marco, over to you.
Thank you, Daniela. Grazie, Daniela. Allora, abbiamo anche disponibile la traduzione in italiano e per accedere a questo bisogna cliccare sul tasto Interpretariato in basso. Dopo aver cliccato, scegliere il canale italiano. La traduzione è disponibile sia dalla lingua che viene utilizzata all'italiano e sia dall'italiano alla lingua che viene utilizzata. Si prega di parlare lentamente, specialmente se si legge qualche cosa. Se ascoltate dei video e volete ascoltare il canale audio originale, potete selezionare disattiva audio originale. Grazie.
Aybek, could you please explain in Russian? Aybek, you explain how the interpretation works in Russian, please? Okay, so maybe we can continue and have the explanation for Russian in the chat. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Gaëlle. Thank you so much. I'd like us to move to our opening ceremony. And today our opening ceremony will be led by Kinohi Fukumitsu from Quorum, a member in Hawaii. Kinohi will take us on a journey towards reconnection and unity. Thank you.
Ho'ohihi ka i'ini I ke ahupu. Ho'ahu ka la ko ka pilina mo. Ho'omau ka hana mai au ilo. Ho'a ke au amo. Amo. Aloha kako ICCA Ohana. My name is Kinohi Fukumitsu and I am from Waimanalo, Oahu in the Pai'aina of Hawaii. I am so sorry we cannot be here with you today and we really hope to meet you all. This opening oli or chant is called Oli Ho'ohihi. It was created to reconnect our network groups after the past few years lived and experienced apart. It translates to, our desires are enraptured in the collective. To gather up supplies of connection, continue the neat and skillful work together, ignite the unceasing light perpetual. We hope for all of these good intentions across the world. By connecting our collective efforts, specialized resources, ancestral knowledge, and grounding ourselves in Aina, we will create positive change across Mamahonua. We open today with hopes of perpetual movement towards safeguarding our Aina through the continuance of our collective well-being. I work for ICCA member Kua Aina Ulu Awamo, also known as Kua, as you can see here. Awamo is a traditional Hawaiian carrying stick. It can be seen right above our logo here. So an awamo is carried on your shoulders to help distribute weight and make heavy loads easier to carry across any distance. We work with over 80 groups throughout Hawaii, which comprise of nonprofits, community groups, and families. Many of their efforts work toward the restoration of Aina, food systems, and community-based cultural practices. Our organization finds ways to help bear the load, connect communities to distribute weight, and also helps to leverage existing resources and systems to support our networks through longer distances. As you embark on the journey ahead, I will leave you with an olelo no eo, or for us, a wise saying from our ancestors, to help awamo you through it. He vai vai nui ka lokahi. One more time. He vai vai nui ka lokahi. Unity is a precious possession. Together we can accomplish anything. Eola. Aloha kako.
Wow. Thank you so much, Kinohi, for that incredibly powerful message. And ending on a note on unity, I think that my hope is that that's the vision for this session and where we're moving to as a consortium. Thank you so much for that beautiful message and for officially opening today's session. Just so maybe we could also just take a few seconds to just be in place with what we've just shared before I move us to what has been shared before I move us to the next order of business. Thank you. Great. Gaëlle, I'm going to pass it over to you to walk us through some practical aspects of the agenda. Thank you.
Sure. So if you joined late, please ensure your name in Zoom reflects your actual name, not something generic. If you are representing a member organization, you can add capital M in front of your name. And if you are an honorary member, you can add a capital H in front of your name. If you are not in the membership and here as an observer, please add OBS in front of your name. This will help us know who you are and in what capacity you are participating. It will also help the Secretariat check for quorum during GA decisions. And it's really important because we have election. We organized interpretation in 5 languages for today's session: English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian. Click the globe in the bottom right, that's your preferred language. During the session today, remember to speak slowly and clearly for the interpreters. We have 2.5 hours available today, and we want to respect everyone's time and schedules, especially with so many people in different time zones around the world. So remember to be concise and specific with your interventions, comments, and questions. During the discussions, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom if you wish to say something to everyone. You can also send a message in the chat box, and the interpreters will do their best to translate more substantive comments into the other languages. The chair may still call you on to explain your question or comment. Thank you and have a good session. Back to you, Patricia.
Thank you so much, Gaëlle. Thank you so much. So greetings and welcome once again to the third session of our General Assembly. For those who've joined us just now, we've just gone through the opening ceremony and Gaëlle just walked us through some practical aspects for today's session. For those who just joined, my name is Patricia Mupeta. I'm current Vice President for the ICCA Consortium. I reside in the home and territories of life of the Khoisan people here in the southwest part of Africa, which I believe is one of the most amazing places in the world, and I encourage folks to come and visit. Great. So we're going to now move on to the agenda. So for today's session, and maybe Gaëlle, yeah, perfect. So we've got the agenda on the screen. I am going to just walk us through today's agenda, and then I will ask two members, one to propose and one to second a motion to approve the revised agenda as one of our formal procedures for our General Assembly as a consortium. So as Gaëlle said, today we have a 2.5 session, and our agenda items were the opening ceremony, which we've just gone through. The second item is to review and approve the revised General Assembly agenda for this session, which is what I've just shared. We will ask a couple of members to do. We will then go into a session led by Holly, our Global Coordinator for the Consortium, on the Secretariat's report, part 2, and this will be focusing more on global level areas of work. After Holly's session, we will have the 2022 Treasurer's Report. This needs to be noted as well in terms of procedures, and I'll walk you through this process. After we complete the Treasurer's Report, we will then have the 2022 Auditor of Accounts Report. This also needs to be noted. Once we finish the procedural parts around finances and the report back from the Secretariat, we'll move into the election session. This is where we will have elections of new council members. And this has to be approved, nominations need to be approved. Once we complete the elections, there'll be the appointment of the Auditor of Accounts and Ombudsman. And then we will close this third session of the General Assembly by the President, and this will be undertaken by Colin, who's taking the second part of the session, where he will suspend the General Assembly to the next period, which is the next session, which will be on the 28th of June. So that is our agenda for today. And so I'd also like to highlight that we have two exciting sessions which are outside the General Assembly in the next week. And these are optional member engagement, but I would love to just also encourage our members to participate because they are really critical for our consortium and where we're going. So the first part is this great work that Teddy has been leading with our Council of Elders and some members of the consortium on a manifesto for the territories of life. There'll be a session on the 6th of June. Again, the same time period as we're having this current consortium. I think it'll be an exciting time. I encourage folks to participate from all across the globe. This is our manifesto. This is what we are saying our clarion call is for the consortium. So it will be good to have the voices from all across the globe and our members in the consortium. The second optional event is on the 8th of June, and this is really around a strategic and organizational process of reflection that we're doing. We have, thank you very much. Thanks for muting. And folks, just remember to mute, please. So yeah, the second optional event is where we're starting to really hone in thinking about where we are as an organization, as a strategy, as our structure, where we're coming from, where do we want to go. And this session, it would be great to have folks to really hone in as well, because we are at a critical space. We're at a critical time, both for ourselves as a consortium and the movement, but also so many different things happening globally that is important that we ourselves as a consortium are in a good, healthy space. So this is a session I really deeply encourage folks to participate, add your voice. What do you want to see the consortium be? Where do you want it to go? Where are we coming from? So this is where we would have these deep dives and reflections. And we've been having some of these discussions as the Executive Council and some of our council members, but we'd really love to have the general membership weigh in this session. So I'm going to, those are the last two. What I then ask is I can ask folks from one to propose and one to second from the consortium, and then we can move to the next order of business. Thank you. I see a hand, I think, and maybe the team can help me. Is there, I think I see Carolina. And I'm sorry, I can't see everybody, so I might be missing some hands.
Buenos días, sí, muchas gracias. La intervención es más si algunas, hemos tenido una reunión desde la región Latinoamérica. Dentro de la agenda, ¿en qué espacio se podrían hacer algunas reflexiones que se hicieran? ¿Dentro del proceso de nominación quizás? ¿O en qué espacio? Gracias.
Gracias, and thank you so much. I believe that this session that is on the 8th will be the opportunity to bring in the voices from Latin America, Africa, all across our program. So yes, I'd highly encourage that. Holly, do you want to say something? I see your hand.
Yeah, thanks, Patricia. And Ines, I'm not sure if the screen sharing has gone a bit funny there. If you're maybe able to stop it just so Patricia can see others a bit more easily. Thanks so much. Yes, Caro, so, and Patricia, I think a moment where this could be discussed in brief, I would suggest, is during the council elections, part of today's agenda. We understand that there was some discussion about one nomination in particular and the desire from the region to have a new position in the council and so on. So this is on our radar for sure. And suggestion is to come to that after some of the other council elections, just to make sure that they can happen in a timely manner, and then have a little bit of a sharing from Latin America about the latest discussions. There is not time for a full discussion about the regionalization process and representation today, but that can come, you know, in due course. There can be other meetings, of course, but just given the time constraints with time zones, interpretation, and so on, we'll just ask you to be as concise as possible, if that's okay. So a bit later in the session towards the end, yeah?
Thanks, Holly. And could I maybe also encourage that if there's also an opportunity to get written input, I think that would also be helpful, because I think it helps build the voices. And Holly, could they send written responses to you?
Well, as this is actually concerning council, I think it would be great if this was a discussion with the council. I mean, I'm happy to be copied, of course, but it's not my responsibility to manage council engagement. Yeah.
All right, noted. Thanks, Holly. So we could then have some written input to the council. And I think we have council members from Latin America. Felipe could probably, I'll put you on the spot. Maybe if you could be our point of contact for that input. Thank you so much. Great. So could we please have a member, 2 members to propose and 1 to second the agenda that has been proposed? Thank you.
Propose on behalf of Semipos.
Thank you very much. And a member to second, please.
I second from NTFP.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. I believe we can move to the next order of business. Thank you and greetings to those who are just joining us. Welcome. Moving to the next session. So in the previous General Assembly, we had the opportunity to hear about the wonderful work of our regional coordination teams as the first part of our 2022 Secretariat's report. In today's session, we will continue with the second part of the 2022 Secretariat report, and this will focus on 3 main thematic streams and several global areas of our work. I would like to now pass it on to Holly Jonas, who will take us through this part of the report. Over to you, Holly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Patricia, and hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. We're very excited to share more highlights from our collective work in 2022. You will hear from several people in our Secretariat, as well as a very special council member. So to start us off, I'd like to first welcome Dr. June Rubis, an honorary member from Malaysia who is thematic representative for documenting territories of life in our Global Council. In 2022, she continued to share this role with Paula Maldonado from our member Aldea in Ecuador. And June will present the report on highlights from the documenting stream of work. June.
Thanks, Holly. Hi, everyone. As Holly said, my name is June Rubis, and I'm the thematic representative for documenting territories of life in our Global Council, a role that I continue to share with Paula Maldonado in 2022. Last year, our members continued to make important advances in local and national level documentation, registries, and databases, including in Indonesia, Malaysian Borneo, the Philippines, Ecuador, Colombia, Mexico, Chile, Burkina Faso, Finland, and many other countries. In Mesoamerica, Cub Solidar and other members produce short documentaries about community experiences with territories of life in coastal and freshwater systems, including in Costa Rica and Panama. At the regional levels, our regional coordination teams, members, and honorary members work closely together to produce 2 impressive new regional reports on the status of territories of life in Southeast Asia with support from NTFP, and in West and Central Asia and the Caucasus with support from Sinesta. The Southeast Asia report included a special chapter on documenting territories of life and was accompanied by a beautiful documentary. In South Asia, Kapovish launched a new portal on community conserved areas with an initial focus on India. Both the Southeast Asia Report and the South Asia Community Conserved Areas portal were soft launched during the IUCN Asia Parks Congress in May, where our members co-organized a sharing session on documenting and mapping territories of life in Asia. Earlier this year, as part of our third Latin American Regional Assembly, our members established a regional working group on documenting territories of life. At the global level, the ICCA consortium continued to work closely with the UNEP World Conservation Monitoring Center and other global partners in support of the ICCA registry. A key highlight was the launch of the new multimedia app called Mapio for ICCAs in December 2022. This app can be used offline by communities to map the territories of life, and if they choose to do so, to share the information directly with the WCMC for the global ICCA registry. As you can see, the stream of work on documenting territories of life is part of the consortium's work at multiple levels and links closely with other forms of recognition and support, including communications, policy advocacy, and more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, June. Next, we will head to Taiwan to hear from Sutej, who is currently the Interregional Coordinator in our Secretariat. Hugu will present via a pre-recorded video the report on our thematic stream of work on sustaining territories of life. Now, Sarah Alakara, who served a 3-year term as thematic representative for sustaining territories of life in our Global Council, unfortunately was not able to present this live today, and she's also not standing for a second term in the council. So let's hear from Hugu via the video. Thanks, Ines.
Aku ki sherapaka kama suuvi. Good day, my dear friends. Members and honorary members are working on diverse aspects of sustaining territories of life, such as internal governance and leadership, health and well-being, education, intergenerational relations, food and energy sovereignty, livelihoods, and cultural events. Over the past few years, the ICCA consortium has tried different forms of support for territories of life in coastal and marine systems, with grants from the Oak Foundation and Packard Foundation. In 2022, we provided sub-grants for members on priorities at local and national levels, including in Tanzania, Malaysia, Chile, Ecuador, Costa Rica, and the nearby countries in Mesoamerica. At the international level, we had a strong presence at the UN Ocean Conference in Portugal, including through online and in-person events, in-person participation of members and community leaders, and multimedia communications support. This momentum was continued at COP15 of the UN Biodiversity Convention in December. Pastoralism and rangelands were another strong focus of our collective work last year. Regional coordinators and members in Asia took the initiative to organize a 3-part online workshop in November. This was an important step towards collectively imagining a global initiative to support the pastoralists' territory of life and their self-determination priorities and plans. This is an excellent example of an inter-regional initiative being developed by and with the membership and linking it to global level opportunities such as the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists. Finally, our communications team highlighted diverse aspects of this stream of work. As just one example, we published a solidarity statement for World Food Day in October, focusing on food sovereignty. Ayoy.
Thank you so much, Hugo, for stepping in to help with this at the last minute. And a very special thanks to our colleague Ines Hirata in Brazil for producing the lovely video slideshow. Barry, I'm hearing French in the English channel, sorry. Great, now I'm pleased to introduce Milka Chepkorir, who was the coordinator of our stream of work on defending territories of life until the end of 2022. Milka's role has since evolved, and as of the start of this year, she is now the co-coordinator for policy and advocacy in Africa, and still with a strong focus on defending territories of life. So Milka is currently in Morocco. I understand the connection's a bit choppy, so let's hope it's strong enough for her to present. And this stream of work, Defending Territories of Life, is supported in the Global Council by Puven Moodley in South Africa. Milka, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. As you've heard, my name is Milka Chepkorir, and I am Sengwer from Cherangani Hills of Kenya. 2022 proved to be a tough year for some of our members as their efforts to defend their territories of life were highly tested. Nevertheless, most of you have in one way or another proved that solidarity is the glue that keeps communities and our association strong. The defending stream of work is here to help us put such efforts together. Last year, we issued alerts and provided different forms of support to amplify what some of our members were facing from various threats, including illegal logging, eviction in the name of conservation, and political and legal harassment. The forms of support we offered were diverse, including public alerts, letters to government officials, online campaigns, connecting community leaders and organizations with emergency funds and journalists, behind the scenes communication and advocacy with conservation organizations, being part of regional and global networks, and more. In Africa, a case that you must have all heard about of the Maasai of Ngorongoro, Tanzania, and their eviction from ancestral land in June 2022. The consortium stood in solidarity with the community in several ways throughout the year. We also supported the Massa of Gabon in their efforts to protect their traditional and sacred forests against logging. In Asia, we responded to several requests for support. For example, in Malaysia, our member Save Rivers and former council member Peter Kalang are facing a legal suit from a logging company. In the Philippines, indigenous activist Steve Tauli was abducted, but thankfully found safe and reunited with his family. As the military junta continues their brutal regime in Myanmar, indigenous leaders held a side events and press conference during the COP15 in Montreal. In Latin America, we issued an alert when indigenous leader Leonidas Iza was illegally detained during national protests in Ecuador. Our membership in Nicaragua faced major challenges with the oppressive regime, including the forced closure of prominent human rights organizations. In Europe, our member Save Xaviera in Montenegro continue their valiant efforts to protect their pastoral lands from invasion of military training grounds, including through a solidarity camp and online petitions. At the international level, we continued to be part of the Alliance for ALID. One highlight was co-organizing a side event on women, indigenous, and environmental defenders during the COP15 in Montreal. Although we doing our best in the Secretariat. Unfortunately, there are very many requests for support that we cannot respond to, I'm sorry. And it is complex and intensive aspect of our work, and we must undertake in close collaboration with our national networks, regional coordination teams, members at all levels, and external partners. We will continue to stand with and support communities, activists, and organizations who are defending territories of life to the best of our abilities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Milka. We heard you perfectly, so I'm glad the connection held from Morocco. So we will, now that we have heard highlights from our three main thematic streams of work, we will turn to the final part of the 2022 Secretariat report. We will now hear from other members of the Secretariat with global level roles, including Ameyali, Arju, Gaëlle, Xaviera, Sarah, and myself. So first, we will go to Mexico to check in with Ameyali Ramos, who will present on our international policy work. Ame was our incredible international policy coordinator for 3 very full-on years until December 2022. Last year, Ame worked closely with Carolina Rodriguez and Aquiles Coco Ngomo in the international policy team. Ame, over to you.
Hola, everyone. So great to be here with you all today and to see some familiar names and faces. I've been asked to present an overview summary on our international policy work in 2022. So this is last year. Our policy work, as many of you know, is a collective effort that starts with our members on the ground, our team of regional coordinators, our honorary members, and the international policy and global teams in the Secretariat. Many of you have been very actively involved in our advocacy work, and our collective successes are a direct result of your involvement. So in 2022, our international policy team included Carolina Rodriguez as regional focal point for Latin America, Aquiles Coco Ngomo as regional focal point for Africa, and myself as international policy coordinator. We worked very hard to organize fireside chats, conversations, peer-to-peer exchanges, and knowledge-sharing sessions to strengthen our collective voice at the international level. As many of you know, since 2018, the ICCA Consortium has been actively engaged in the development of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. And this framework was officially adopted at the 15th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, known as COP15, in December 2022. 2022 was a very, very intense year. It was a year of important negotiations and discussions with allies and partners to ensure that our member priorities would be reflected in the framework. While far from perfect, the Kunming-Montreal framework that was adopted does take some important steps forward in terms of human rights, equity and justice, legal recognition of collective lands, water and territories, beyond protected areas and other effective area-based conservation measures known as OECMs in English, recognition of sustainable customary use, the participation of women, girls, and youth, marine issues and fisher folks, and protection of environmental human rights defenders. The new forms of recognition in the Global Biodiversity Framework are a high watermark for the UN CBD, but it should be considered a new minimum standard that needs to be continually built upon in law and policy, and in practice to continue advancing advocacy priorities in local, national, and international arenas. And although international laws and policies may seem distant, the voices of our members from their territories of life are fundamental to advancing what was agreed in the new Global Biodiversity Framework and beyond. It is precisely at the national and subnational levels and in the territories of life that we will see whether the highest ambitions of the global framework are truly realized in practice or not. So moving forward, we must continue to focus on supporting our members and custodians of territories of life to achieve their self-determined priorities. Although I now have concluded my role as International Policy Coordinator, Carolina, Aquiles, and Milka, and the regional coordination teams will continue to facilitate and support your engagement in our policy and advocacy work in 2023. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Ame. We appreciate you coming back to present on the highlights from last year. So let's now head all the way to Bangladesh to learn about our communications work from Mohammad Arju, our communications coordinator. Ines Hirata and Melissa Chavez are also very key parts of our communications team, and they both expanded their roles and joined the Secretariat proper at the start of this year. So Arju, go ahead.
Hello everyone, Arju here. I'm happy to present the report on communications. Our colleagues in the global team, Ines Hirata, multimedia and graphic design coordinator, and Melissa Chavez, web and social media coordinator, and we prepared this report together. In the communications team, we are working with the membership to increase the visibility and support of important work done by our members and honorary members as part of the global movement for the territories of life of indigenous peoples and local communities. Regionalized and decentralized bottom-up approaches to communications are strengthening across our association. This has been reflected, for example, in our communications campaign for the 2020 UN Oceans Conference and the 2020 UN Biodiversity Conference COP15. In both cases, our membership, national level working groups and focal persons, and the Secretariat's regional coordination teams and the global team worked closely together and made it possible to ensure the voices and self-determined priorities of guardians and custodians of territories of life were heard at the global level. This is our approach to collaboration for communications in all other cases, whether it is related to drafting strategies and preparing content to support a community under threat, or creating insightful stories based on successful work done by communities and our memberships to document, sustain, defend, and sustain and defend the territories of life. Last year, we edited, produced, and published over 186 articles on the consortium website and 3 special web pages. We have made many videos for internal use and published about 60 videos on our YouTube and other social media platforms. We have ran regular and special social media campaigns on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We continued publishing new content and updating and maintaining our special websites, including the self-strengthening guidance and toolbox. We have released 18 newsletters, including the regular monthly ones, to share the consortium's news, actions, and resources with our subscribers. We have created and used high-quality graphics and multimedia materials with all these communication content. For all this work, I want to thank our membership, our linguistic support coordinators, Gaëlle and Daniela, our new colleagues from the Latin American Secretariat, Yves Morales, linguistic support assistants, Matilde and Camila, and more than 60 linguistic collaborator volunteers, including Chris, Derek, and Rachel, who helped us with translations and proofreading, and also simultaneous interpretation for live events and meetings. I would like to also thank our global coordinator, Holly, and IT consultant and web manager, Jake, for their valuable support in our communications work. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Arju. You've done a brilliant job growing this area of work over the past few years. It's really amazing to see. So as Arju said, closely linked to our overall communications work is linguistic support, which has also in a similar time frame quickly become central to our collective work in the Secretariat. Gaëlle Le Gauyer and Daniela Campos Rubio are our linguistic support coordinators, and they work with an amazing group of collaborators and volunteers. We are all seeing them in action in real time with their interpretation support today during our General Assembly. I'm pleased to introduce Gaëlle, Linguistic Support Coordinator, to share the 2022 highlights on behalf of the growing team.
Thank you, Holly. So, hi everyone. First, we would like to thank all the volunteers and collaborators who support the linguistic work of the consortium. So you can see part of them on the screen. So there are translators, editors, proofreaders, subtitlers, and interpreters. And in total, like Arju said, it's around 60 people who support us now according to their possibilities, abilities, and interests. We also want to celebrate the collaboration with Camila Miranda Reyes as Linguistic Support Assistant for Spanish, who works closely with Daniela Campos Rubio, our Linguistic Support Coordinator for Spanish, and the collaboration with Mathilde Crater, who joined the team in January as a Linguistic Support Assistant for French, who is working closely with me. So in 2022, Rachel Papin was here now, was the Linguistic Support Assistant for French. And we also want to thank her a lot for all she brought to the team. So during last year, we continued providing interpretation support for many consortium events and translation support for the different governance bodies and areas of work of the consortium, including regular external communications. We also created subtitles for different videos produced for the UN Ocean Conference in June. And for the first time since the GA in Udaipur in 2019, we organized in-person interpretation for 2 major international events. So we had interpretation in person in Lisbon for the UN Ocean Conference, and in Montreal for COP15 of the UN Convention on Biological Diversity. We also recruited 5 new volunteers who work with Swahili, and with the great support of Milka, Aquilas, Sule, and Jake, we shall soon add the first texts in Swahili on our website. Another important update is that the guidance on self-strengthening processes was translated into Chinese and Spanish. And this year, we hope to publish this guidance in Russian, Hindi, Swahili, and Portuguese. I would also like to use this opportunity to remind you that we appreciate linguistic support requests in advance, as we cannot plan interpretation and do translations from one day to another, apart from really exceptional cases linked to alerts. So I invite you to make the most of this support in multiple languages. Thanks again to all the volunteers and collaborators who are providing linguistic support, and especially to the volunteer interpreters supporting us today with 2 new languages for this GA, Italian and Russian, and we add also Portuguese in previous sessions, in addition to the 3 languages in which we usually provide interpretation, that is Spanish, French, and English. So just to conclude, over the past few years, linguistic support has become increasingly central to our collective work, and this part of the team has grown accordingly. The next challenge now is expanding to additional languages. We are already undertaking this step with various colleagues from the regional teams in line with our capacities and as part of the ongoing regionalization process, with the intention of developing a decentralized approach to linguistic support systems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gaëlle, Daniela, and all of our dedicated linguistic support collaborators and volunteers. Next, we will head to Spain to hear from Xaviera, our administration coordinator. Xavi picked up the baton with this role at the start of this year and will report on the work undertaken in 2022 by her predecessor, Alison Powell.
Thank you, Holly. Hello, everyone. I am Xaviera Elorza, Administration Coordinator for the ICCA Consortium since January 2023. Today, I will be presenting the administration report based on the dedicated hard work of my predecessor, Alison Powell, who held the position from October 2020 until the end of 2022. The main responsibility of the administration coordinator is to provide several forms of administrative and logistical support for the membership, the council, the secretariat, and consortium events. In 2022, Alison provided support for meetings of the council, the membership committee, and secretariat, including by scheduling, contributing to the agenda and materials, facilitating, and preparing follow-up content. As a key axis of our functioning as a membership-based association, she excelled at maintaining and improving our membership administration systems, including our private and public membership databases, several global, regional, and thematic Google email groups, one of our main internal communication channels, and 2 membership intake rounds. And this was not an easy task. She received and verified all new member applications and honorary member nominations and coordinated the process of review by the membership committee and then the full membership. A total of 28 members and 35 honorary members joined the consortium last year. They were welcomed through private events and public notifications on our website. A major highlight was coordinating the first ever honorary member review, during which Alison compiled and analyzed 253 responses, over half of listed honorary members. An internal report was shared within the Secretariat, particularly for follow-up action on the regional coordination teams. Key findings were presented by Aman Singh in the Membership Committee report to the General Assembly in March. Another major aspect of this role is helping organize events like the General Assembly. In this regard, our 2022 GA had the highest participation rates to date. To make the assemblies more inclusive and accessible, Alison introduced Lumio as a new tool, which enables the membership to review reports in advance and get involved in consensus building and decision-making, even if unable to join the live sessions. This kind of thoughtful and diligent work is often behind the scenes and not visible, but we hope you can feel and appreciate the changes and improvements we're making each year. Taking advantage of this space, I would like to remind you that information on applicants and nominees for this year's first round of admissions has already been shared with the membership, and 1st June is the end of the review period. If you have not already done so, I invite you to read about them and their work and express your opinion before we welcome them to the consortium. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Xavi. You've done an amazing job picking up that baton from Alison, very capably and confidently taking this on and supporting our GA prep as well. So let's stay in Europe and head to Switzerland, where the ICCA Consortium is formally registered as an association. We will hear from Sarah Ryder, our operations coordinator, who will share some key updates on finances and fundraising on behalf of our small but strong operations and finance team, which also now includes Mercedes Villalba and myself. Sarah.
Hello. 2022 was completely dominated by the closure of our Swiss bank accounts and transition of our operations to a fiscal sponsor in the US. As shared in last year's General Assembly, our Swiss bank notified us at the end of 2021 that they were unilaterally closing the consortium's bank account, even though we had followed all the rules and did not do anything wrong. With changes in the Swiss and global banking systems, the consortium was considered too risky for the bank due to the composition of our council and the number and location of countries to which we send funds. Holly and I prioritized addressing this situation over everything else because our operations could not continue without a bank account. We exhausted many different options. Eventually, the only viable option was to move our operations to a fiscal sponsor, which would give us access to both a bank account and non-profit status. We found the best possible fiscal sponsor for the consortium with Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors in the US. Holly and I cannot overstate how serious and high stakes this situation was. We were precipitously close to not being able to find a viable way forward, partly because of the broader banking systems, but largely because of the consortium's administrative complexity. Throughout the entire year, this process required an extraordinary amount of our time, energy, and attention, and prevented us from working on many other organizational priorities. Thankfully, our financial systems are now fully operational with RPA, and we're satisfied with their services. Passing now to key improvements and advances in 2022. In this first slide, you can see the total expenditure per year since 2011 in thousands of US dollars. There was a sharp increase from 2020 to 2021, and a similar increase again in 2022. This is the result of our efforts to build stronger relationships with funders and secure more funds for our work and core capacities. We have already secured a significant amount for 2023 and 2024. In slide 2, you can see the 2022 expenditures under each of our main budget categories. In January 2022, we increased the standardized remuneration for the regional coordination teams for the third year in a row, although it is still far lower than what it should be. We further invested in key forms of support in our Secretariat, particularly communications and linguistic support, to strengthen our internal capacities. We invested significantly in the ongoing regionalization process, particularly in-person national, sub-regional, and regional assemblies. We provided more sub-grants than ever before to members, national networks, and regional coordination teams to undertake self-determined priorities and catalytic actions. Expenses for participation in international events increased considerably as pandemic-related travel restrictions were relaxed and the UN system resumed in-person negotiations. Here you can see which funders have provided financial support to the consortium since the start of financial operations in 2011. Last year, we secured new grants from 5 existing funders and 1 new core funder, and worked on building relationships with potential new funders. Finally, we have engaged more actively in advocacy with our funders and the broader philanthropic sector, including for flexible core support, trust-based philanthropy, direct funding for Indigenous peoples and local communities and their organizations, transparency and accountability for funds going to large international organizations, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We will stay with you to hear some updates on team management and support, which you and I work on closely together.
Hello again. In 2022, we continue to encourage team members to regularly reflect on their roles and relationships with others in the team. And we openly discussed deeper questions, concerns, and ideas for how to improve our internal culture and team arrangements. We worked with several team members to adapt their roles and responsibilities as needed to align them as closely as possible with the organization's needs at the time and with each person's unique passions, interests, skills, and competencies, and mutually desired time commitment. In terms of changes in the Global Secretariat and core collaborators, 4 people concluded their roles and left the team in early 2022, in 2022 or early 2023, and 7 people joined the team. We currently have vacancies for regional coordination teams in Europe, North America, and Southern Africa. Job Morris's role ended during 2022. In Europe and North America, the vacancies are partly due to a lack of funding and higher remuneration expectations, and limited membership and engagement. Otherwise, a very positive development is that nearly all of the regional coordinators are now working in a collaborative team approach with an intentional focus on sharing responsibilities and building the next generation of leadership. We also welcomed new coordination teams for East Australasia and the Pacific Islands, and for East and North Asia. At the end of last year, Sutej moved on from his role as Regional Coordinator for East and North Asia and started an exciting new role this year as Inter-Regional Coordinator. Although it is beyond the scope of the 2022 report, discussions are currently underway in the Secretariat about how to further adapt and strengthen certain aspects of our programmatic and operational support, and we will be sharing more news with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm just jumping between a few things here. Making sure. Okay, so just as a heads up to Colin, you will be coming up soon as the rotating chair, okay? So just as the final part of our Secretariat report, I'll just share some very brief kind of additional reactions or reflections rather. I just want to do a time check. Yeah, we're running quite a bit behind, so I will keep it very brief. So I really mostly just want to send a massive thanks to everyone in our Secretariat, all of our collaborators and volunteers for another year of incredible collective work. As Sarah said, we had no choice last year but to prioritize getting the consortium through the very challenging banking situation and fiscal sponsor transition. And it took us away from so many other priorities and working closely with people on programmatic work and so on. The silver lining, however, is that the rest of the team stepped up, took initiative to ensure other aspects of our work were covered, and with far less hands-on support than usual from Sarah and me. So just really wanted to acknowledge that that was another part of that dynamic that the team wonderfully responded to in very challenging circumstances, and we rallied around that situation and collectively saw us through. So to our team, working with all of you is one of the greatest joys of my life. So thank you so much for everything you're doing. It's really incredibly inspiring. So to our membership, I know that there are extremely high expectations and demands on our Secretariat. I know we're not meeting all of these expectations. There's always more to be done and more improvements to be made. But please be assured, everyone in our team is doing the best we can in challenging circumstances. And I encourage everyone in our membership to also be compassionate towards our team members and maybe occasionally check in to see how people are doing. And we should be doing that with everyone to make sure we're all okay and to provide that emotional and moral support when people are not doing as well. Yeah. So over many years in the Secretariat, we've had lots of discussions about our internal team culture, ways of working. There are so many incredibly positive aspects of our internal culture. We have really close relationships that have been built up over time, strong sense of mutual support and solidarity, a very high level of motivation and dedication, assuming everyone is doing their best, a lot of trust, working with flexibility, creativity, a very deep sense of purpose, and so on. However, we also need to be honest about some of the unhealthy and even potentially dangerous aspects of the internal team culture, many of which have existed since the beginning of the consortium and continue to persist today, despite several improvements. So among other things, the Secretariat faces quite unrealistically high expectations and demands. We struggle with insufficient prioritization and focus strategically and so on. A core challenge that we face are very low remuneration rates in many countries. Many people cannot afford to work full time with us. Burnout culture is unfortunately very common and deeply pervasive in social movements and the nonprofit sector in general. And we in the consortium are not immune to it, even though we are I would say, unusually caring and compassionate towards each other. And there's a lot of over-reliance still on a relatively small number of people with a lot of responsibility. We have also, as everyone, struggled over the past few years with not having the in-person connections. Many new team members have not met anyone in person yet. So that is a really key part of what we're looking at addressing later this year and next year, to really reconnect, as Kinohi said so beautifully in the opening ceremony, reconnect with that sense of unity and shared purpose, build those relationships. So really the bedrock of what we do together. So just wanted to mention those things, put them on the table so that you're aware of them. We will definitely be continuing to talk about this in more detail within the Secretariat, with the Council, with the full membership, as part of our process of organizational reflection, revisioning, and strategic planning, with the support of our member Malia Sili. As Patricia said at the beginning of today's session, we will have a special membership engagement event next Thursday, June 8th, where some of these issues will be put on the table as well. It will be a very welcome opportunity to reflect on our past and current systems and structures, which are here to support the collective work of the association, and really work together to collectively envision and put into practice systems in an ecosystem really that will even better support the consortium's work for the coming years. So I'm really proud of the work that the Secretariat did last year in support of all of you and the membership. There's really amazing next line leadership developing in real time, growth and expansion of the regional teams, and so on and so forth. So please join me in thanking the whole Secretariat. And yeah, just again, a big thanks from the bottom of my heart to our whole team. You're brilliant and amazing, and I adore all of you. So thank you everyone for your support through all of this. And that now wraps up our 2022 Secretariat report, part 1 with the regional coordination teams last month, and part 2 with the global teams today. So I encourage you also, I forgot to mention this earlier, more details of all the reports that we've shared, both the regional teams and the global teams and the thematic areas of work. They're all shared on Lumio with lots of links to great web updates and more details there. So please do check those out as well, and we'd be happy to respond to any questions you may have. So with that, I will pass the mic back to Colin, the treasurer of our council, who is going to assume the GA chair role from here on. Thanks.
Thank you, Holly, and all our global team members and thematic representatives in the Global Council for sharing these 2022 highlights with the General Assembly. I will open the floor now for any questions or comments about the global team members' reports or overall about the 2022 Secretariat report. I don't see any questions or comments. If there are no objections, well, I'll ask, are there any objections from the General Assembly to the reports? And if not, the 2022 Secretariat report is noted. Okay, so at this point, I need to switch hats from chairing to my role as treasurer of the council, and will present the report of the 2022 accounts and financial statements. If those could be screen shared, please. Thank you. Okay. So the 2022, as has already been mentioned by Sarah, saw the unilateral closure of the ICCA consortium bank accounts in Switzerland, and the transfer of the ICCA consortium financially to become a sponsored project of Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors in New York. So all ICCA consortium funds are now held in a US dollar account with RPA. The ICCA consortium no longer has an operational or financial presence in Switzerland, and all operations and finances are managed by RPA. When I say no longer has an operational presence in Switzerland, that's vis-a-vis our finances. Of course, there is still a legal incorporation in Switzerland. The Treasurer's Annual Report, 1st of January to the 31st of December 2022, consolidates the income and expenditure accounts from the ICCA consortium, which are audited at this point, and from RPA. And our consortium accounts with RPA are not yet audited, but we've combined them in this report to provide a complete picture for the year. The balance sheet, not yet audited at 31st of December 2022, was prepared by RPA and the ICCA consortium. All grant agreements have been fully transferred to RPA at this point. Could I have the next slide, please? So here's an overview of the status of our organizational accounts, our available funds in US dollars as of the 31st of December. At the end of 2022, were $998,664 as compared to $715,000 in 2021. So we see an increase in available restricted funds, a modest decrease in unrestricted funds in at the end of 2022, which were at 68,000 and compared with 84,000 at the end of 2021. So our total available funds, just over $1 million at the end of 2022 compared to 800,000 at the end of 2021. Next slide, please. Here's our balance sheet. Our contributions receivable on the left refer to funds that are committed, have been committed to by our donors, but have not yet been received. Our net assets are the difference between our assets, what we have or will receive, and our liabilities, what we have committed to pay. So our total assets are over $2 million, just over $2 million. Our total liabilities, 182,000. Our total net assets, 1.8 million, and that in the balance sheet adds up to the just over $2 million in total liabilities and net assets. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So incomes and expenditures for the year 2022. The investments line on the left refer to income received from the capital preservation pool at RPA. But the great majority of the action on the left, of course, is from contributions from donors. Significant upfront funding income was received from several grants to cover expenditures incurred in 2022 and into 2023. And the surplus of income over expenditure is shown as surplus for the period. That surplus for the period totals just over $1 million. Next slide, please. Here we have a pictorial breakdown of expenditures in 2022, 1.25 million US dollars. Subgrants making up the largest category, nearly half. Consultancy fees, the next largest at 385,000 roughly. Administrative grants, admin and grants assessment, 164,000 or 13%. Small, relatively small amounts for travel and meetings, as well as various miscellaneous expenditures. Next slide, please. So our activity in consortium restricted use grants in 2022 is summarized in this pair of tables, again combining grants received through RPA and grants that that were received into consortium accounts while they were still in Switzerland. So we can see really a diverse, quite impressive and growing number of donors. Oak Foundation, GSI, our anonymous donor, Packard, National Geographic, Swedbio, Christensen, Tikva Grassroots, ILC, Synchronicity Earth, FPW, Natural Justice, and Sal Foundation. Next slide. Our total expenditures were affected by a few factors. The subgrants made to member organizations included for Community Fisheries Initiative, in-country support costs to member organizations in numerous countries, our regional coordination teams in the second half of the year, which had previously been recorded as consultancy fees. Support for participation, including interpretation support at the UN Oceans Conference and at the Convention on Biodiversity, COP15. And finally, RPA levies an administration fee on income received by the consortium. The total amount paid in 2022 was $107,000 US dollars. Next slide. Linguistic support, interpretation and translation for member and honorary member participation in internal and external meetings and events. For 2022, that was over $30,000 US dollars. Our unrestricted funds were used to pay for expenditures that couldn't be allocated to any of the restricted use grants, and included nearly $19,000 US dollars for payments to regional coordination teams, $2,700 US dollars for banking and administration fees, and $40,000 US for VAT payments, value-added tax, I guess, payments for a period of 2017 to 2021. These were payments that we were aware for some time might need to be made, and so those have now been settled. The full Treasurer's Annual Report for the calendar year 2022 is available upon request. Next slide. So that is it. Thank you very much. So I guess now resuming my role as chair, I ask the General Assembly if there are any questions or comments. Marco Bassi, I see your hand up, and Delphine Ganapin. Marco.
Thank you, Colin, for the report, and the Secretariat for the great job done. I just have a question, which is rather technical, a financial aspect. If we maybe I switch to English, or should I switch to English, or can I do Italian?
I think it's fine, whichever you, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, the question is, with this fiscal sponsor based in USA, we may have a problem if we present a proposal to the European Union for financial activity with the European members involving the consortium, the Secretariat. Now, is it, can it be considered to be based in Switzerland from the financial point of view, or maybe we can't really include the Secretariat in those kind of proposal, whereas members that are associated into the project should be from certain countries, most likely European countries.
So this is a stipulation of potential funders.
Yes, correct. Funders, you know, basically maybe they support some activity, documenting, or we have to reframe in a certain way, but we involve different universities, different NGOs, and the NGOs should be based in Europe.
Well, that's interesting. I suppose that RPA has probably not. It's not the first time they've encountered this, but I don't know what provision they might have. Maybe I don't know if Holly or Sarah have had any communication about that or have come across this problem.
Yeah, thanks. And perhaps, Marco, we can also discuss this separately. It's a little bit region specific, but the broader point is absolutely spot on in that we do have now a sort of a split personality disorder with our legal entities for the consortium, where we continue to have the Swiss entity. It's registered as a nonprofit association in Switzerland. That's still there. That's our statutes, our council, our membership are still totally under the Swiss entity, but no funds or contracts or anything fund related can go through the Swiss entity without a bank account. All of our funding, operational, anything, contracts, etc., has to go through our fiscal sponsor in the US, through which we also have nonprofit status. So basically, you can think about the kind of legal political association side of the consortium still exists as a nonprofit in Switzerland. We also have nonprofit status in the US. All of our finances have to go through the fiscal sponsor in the US. So perhaps in this specific situation, we can talk about that further. Maybe there's a way to explain it to this particular entity that, you know, just what our arrangements are. Yeah, hope that helps.
Thanks, Holly. Delphine.
Thanks, Colin, for the very informative report. I'm just curious, one of the bigger funder is GSI, but the drawdown or utilization is very low. Correct me if I read it wrong. You know, I glanced at it quite very fast, but the utilization of the GSI funding is quite low. And I wonder whether it's the bureaucracy or the difficulty of accessing the funds or developing projects. But it could be a problem because, you know, knowing funders, if you have a very low utilization from that funding, you cannot go back and ask for more or for the second phase. So I wonder if there's a reason there that perhaps you can find a solution and get a faster drawdown or utilization of the GSI funding.
Right. Well, thanks for that question. As I read the tables, the portion received that had been received into our accounts in Switzerland was virtually fully expended. 641,000 out of the 643. So I guess you're referring to the portion received since through RPA, and of the 530,000 received, 114,000 was used. So you make a point which is generally valid, that one wants to be seen to be using funds. But Holly has a hand up, I think, to respond as well.
Yeah, Delphin, definitely appreciate the question. It was basically a logistical and timing issue with when the GSI grant agreement came through from UNDP. It was very much a product of the transition to the fiscal sponsor and complications around that, with UNDP seeing it as a different entity, and they had to go through more approvals and so on. So we actually were operating for quite a long time without any grant agreement for the GSI from UNDP. We only, we had one up until, I think it was June 2021, and then we did not have a new grant agreement until September 2022 for various bureaucratic reasons, basically. So it was just because we only were able to sign the agreement in September and receive funds thereafter. And so there was only a small window of the calendar year in which we could spend funds. And most of that therefore was used for remuneration support for the regional coordination teams, among other things. But that grant agreement is until November of this year, so it will be spent within this calendar year. I hope that clarifies.
Thanks, Holly. Fausto for Sarayaku. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Congratulations for the report, which is very precise and very understandable. I wanted to propose in this General Assembly two proposals indeed to the ICCA Consortium and Secretariat in general. First proposal would be that indigenous people and the territories of life are threatened by extractivist activity in Latin America and the Caribbean, but also in Asia, Africa, and all the regions in the world. Indigenous people, we all face same problems. In Ecuador, for instance, we are working in a new acknowledgement law for the holistic right of the land for Indigenous people in order to acknowledge this new category as an own category in this space to be free from extractivist activities forever as a single mechanism in order to support and face and contribute to the climate change problem. I think ICCA consortium from different scenarios, we need to consolidate this proposal for this acknowledgement and for the governments acknowledging the territories of life of Indigenous people. So I want to ask for unity and strength for this proposal. The second topic would be the Indigenous people and local communities. We need to work in a proposal, a technical proposal, in order to get an own funding mechanism to have this climatic from COP, from agencies and philanthropies, among other entities that might help for the conservation, governance, and territories of life strategies. We need to work in this mechanism for new funding as our own funding mechanism for Indigenous people having direct access to these funds, because till now in the framework there is not a mechanism regarding funding. So I propose ICCA consortium and all the partners globally, we need to work in a new mechanism to engage the convention, the local communities platform, and Indigenous people platform, which is the single part of the convention. And also we need to ask from ICCA consortium, we need to ask for this right through the mechanism while creating our own funding mechanism to get this climate fund. Thank you very much. And I hope you will have a lovely day and a very good work session. Thank you.
Thank you, Fausto. Those are really crucial points. It's clear that there needs to be very strategic attention to investment, that investment in forms that are appropriate for our members in biodiversity and in carbon stewardship. And these are policy questions, I guess, that go beyond the scope of the immediate Treasurer's report exercise. But let's find a place to put those on the agenda of a council meeting coming soon, or perhaps there's some space, I don't know, in the remaining session of the General Assembly. I don't have at my fingertips the agenda for that final session, and whether there might be room to discuss this. Would perhaps Holly, would you have a comment? How we proceed on that very important question?
Yeah, Fausto, excellent points, both of them. And I think just to avoid taking more time during today's session, I think it would be excellent. Perhaps we can organize a dedicated session to get into these ideas in more detail and also talk about some of the practicalities around rapid response funding mechanisms, if there's a way to strengthen region-specific emergency response for the defending issues, etc. Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting Indigenous-led funds that are already growing, and it would be great to look at potential collaboration with some of them, as well as perhaps this idea of a new fund specifically dedicated to the movement for territories of life. There's lots of amazing ideas, opportunities, so I think it'd be great if perhaps we can organize a new separate session where we can get into all of this together and have a great discussion.
Thank you. So if I think at this point I can ask, are there any objections to the treasurer's report? And if not, it will be noted. Okay, thank you. Now, Marc Foggin, our Auditor of Accounts and Ombudsperson, will present his report to the General Assembly.
Hey, hello. Good to see everyone here today. As mentioned, my name is Marc Foggin, and I'm an honorary member of the consortium. I also serve as the Auditor of the Accounts, also Ombudsperson. This is my annual report, working on behalf of the membership about the consortium's accounts in 2022. Dear colleagues, partners, and friends, as the Auditor of Accounts for the ICCA consortium, I have reviewed the accounts and financial reports that have been provided to me, including the Treasurer's report. From my examination of the documents that have been shared, I do fully concur with our Treasurer that these offer us a clear and coherent outline of the consortium's financial standings, and together with a clear outline of the long-standing financial processes, together with recognizing the unique transitional aspects of our operations in 2022. As a reminder to us all, my main role, the main role that I have as Auditor of Accounts, is to review and to assess on behalf of us all, that is the membership, whether the consortium's financial accounts appear to be clear, complete, and accurate. In reviewing the finances for 2022, it is especially noteworthy that we have benefited from the support of several generous donors. These have been seen on screen and they have been mentioned. Some of them are old, others are new donors, and they include the Oak Foundation, Packard Foundation, National Geographic. But I won't repeat the whole list, but we are very appreciative of so many donors. As explained in the Treasurer's report, beyond continued operation of projects and other ongoing activities of the consortium, we underwent a transition from operating out of Switzerland to operating out of the USA in collaboration with Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, or RPA, under which our operations and finances are now managed and reported. While 2022 presented some additional challenges with the transition, such as refunding and then reissuing some project grants, as well as reporting on 2 partial accounting periods, pre and post-transition. Now, at this point, all of the consortium's projects and accounts are consolidated with RPA, and clear end-of-year balance sheets and income and expenditure reports are readily available. More detailed review of several operational changes, such as how financial support is provided to regional teams, and also review of several of the funding and expenditure trends, including activities during the year and new grants secured. All of these have been provided elsewhere. In sum, from my detailed reading and review, undertaken on behalf of us all, this is the case. The ICCA Consortium's accounts do indeed appear to be in good order, for which we're all very, very grateful. I also wish to note here a real and sincere appreciation for the hard, diligent, and fruitful work of our treasurer, Colin Scott, who just has been presenting to us, and the whole financial team. Anne Meyer was the ICCA Consortium accountant until October 2022, and she was responsible for keeping the accounts and preparing the financial statements for ICCA Consortium operations out of Switzerland up until October 6, 2022. RPA then took over responsibility from Anne for keeping the consortium accounts, and they prepared the financial statements for the second half of the year for operations out of the USA. Now, more recently, Mercedes Vijalba is now the consortium financial coordinator, and she has consolidated both sets of financial statements to give us an overall picture for the whole year. I would like to thank everyone for keeping such clear and accurate accounts and their reporting on these to us, both in terms of the actual numbers and also the consortium's operational procedures. We are really, really grateful to them for this. Finally, as in previous years, in addition to the above financial matters, I wish to highlight how the work of the consortium, how the work undertaken by the consortium through its members, with support from the Secretariat and others, is truly global in nature extremely diverse and meaningful. Our collective impacts extend well beyond what can be suitably captured in financial records and project and activity reports. As such, the foundation of the ICCA Consortium's regional and global activities and achievements, our achievements, continue to be the commitment of all its members and honorary members for promoting a more appropriate recognition and support of ICCA's territories of life. With this, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark, for your diligent and timely inputs in this process. And thank you to Mercedes Villalba, our finance coordinator, for helping to create the treasurer's report. It was a huge assistance to me and the auditor of accounts report. Are there any objections to the auditor's report as given by Mark? If not, the report is noted. So before moving on to the second part of the session, we have an exciting group of council elections coming up. Let's take a quick bio break. Enjoy some music, and we'll meet back here in 5 minutes. Please take a moment to fill out the short survey shared in the chat about this year's General Assembly so far. You can share your feedback on today's session and or the second session at the end of April. So thank you. See you in 5 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're eager to participate in what's coming next. But first, let's open our cameras for a group photo. Cameras open, please. We seem to have a lot of shy participants. Or participants on extended bio break. Not sure. We still have a minority of people with their cameras open. Shall we just go ahead with the photo, or shall we just carry on with the agenda?
We can just take it with whoever is on screen. That's all good.
Let's go. Okay. Can someone signal when that's been done?
I took some screenshots. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So we turn to the election of council members. First of all, let's recall briefly how decisions are made in our General Assembly. We reviewed this during the first session, and the information is available on Lumio for reference. We'll have a number of important decisions today. The election of members of the council and appointment of the Auditor of Accounts and Ombudsperson, effective until the next General Assembly 2024. The decision-making process for all major decisions is structured around two basic concepts: quorum and consensus. For any decision taken by the General Assembly to be valid, it's necessary for us to have quorum. I'm getting some feedback here. I don't know if, could you be sure that you have that you're on mute? I'll continue. It's necessary for us to have quorum, and this means that we require at least 1/5 of the members in good standing to participate in each General Assembly decision. This can be reached through member participation in Lumio polls and during the live General Assembly sessions. Currently, we need the participation of 38 member organizations to have quorum. As for consensus within the consortium, we consider it has been achieved when there is general agreement as well as an explicit lack of disagreement about a specific decision. This consensus builds upon the advice of all members and honorary members who are willing to contribute constructively. First, when taking these decisions, we have space for an open discussion among members and honorary members. This happens in advance of the GA through Lumio consensus polls and comments, and during the GA, when you can express yourselves freely by raising your hand and intervening or writing in the chat. In the event that objections are raised either before or during the General Assembly, we will seek to understand and resolve them by facilitating a discussion of the objections and proposed alternatives until everyone present is sufficiently satisfied and agreement is reached. If no objections are raised, consent is assumed, and we move to confirming the decision by asking for a member to propose and another member to second the motion to approve the decision. So I hope that is clear. Today's elections will be for 6 regional representatives, all of whom were nominated through the ongoing regionalization process and in line with our governance procedures. We will have another group of council elections during the 4th and final session of the General Assembly next month, with nominations received by today. To ensure we're all on the same page, I will share a short explanation of how the council elections will work. I will introduce the nominees, I think with the assistance of Xaviera. Secondly, we'll have a discussion with the nominees present. I'll call for any questions from the membership. Nominees will then be moved to a virtual waiting room in Zoom, and I will call for further discussion with the membership remaining in the main Zoom room, that is the General Assembly membership at large. Fourth, we will check with the Secretariat how consensus is shaping up on Lumio. And fifth, we will welcome back the nominees and share the results. So I'll turn it to Xaviera.
Thank you, Colin. So hello, everyone, again. To begin our elections, I would like to introduce the nominees we are considering today. I will introduce each of them and read the biographies of those who could not join us live before we move to discussion. As a reminder, all of the nominees' bios were shared in advance with you via Lumio, so you're welcome to look at them on your own devices if you wish to do so. First, we have Aybek Samakov, who is standing for his second term as regional representative for West and Central Asia and the Caucasus. His nomination has the consensus support of the membership in this region. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, Aybek had to leave, so I will read his bio. Aybek is a researcher at Aijin Cultural Research Center. He has been working on documenting sacred sites as well as traditional ecological knowledge of local communities in Kyrgyzstan. In his work, he seeks to understand how sacred sites can enhance biocultural conservation both within and outside of formal protected areas. Another vein of his research is on territories of life, livelihoods, commons, and adaptive strategies of the local communities living in the Syr Darya River Delta. IBEC has also been involved in international science policy platforms, such as the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, IPBES. IBEC has already served one term as a council member representing the region, and he has contributed to regionalization and self-strengthening processes in the region and participated in preparing the overview report of the ICCAs in the region. This is IBEC on screen. Second, we have Marco Bassi, who is standing for his second term as regional representative for Europe. His nomination has the consensus support of the membership in this region. And now I invite Marco to present himself.
Thank you, Xaviera. Basically, I've been working on the territories of life and the ICCAs since 2 decades. Basically, I was collaborating with the IUCN-CISP at the beginning to 20 years ago. And then at that time, I was mainly working in Ethiopia, making research in Ethiopia. Now, since few years, I came back to Europe. So I've been shifting my attention from this common modality of producing and dealing with nature in Africa, now shifting the attention to Europe, where we found the reality of the commons in Europe, which is again working on the main basic criteria. So professionally, I'm a researcher. I teach in the University of Palermo these days. I've been working in many universities in Ethiopia, America, England, many places. We are now trying to publish some news on the newsletter of the ICCA Consortium about what is going on in Europe. We are trying to revive the involvement of the grassroots organization with the ICCA Consortium. And my objective for the second term is to bring the European member to a kind of modality of work that can be sustainable in the long run. So I see my role just as a transitionary one to arrive at the working modalities, because there's a lot of potential in Europe, and we have to work quite hard to achieve some result as other region did. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marco. Very interesting. So third, we have Bololoniaina Raso Arimanana, who is standing for her third term in the council, this time in a new revised role as regional representative for Madagascar and the Indian Ocean Islands. This is a new position that was proposed through the regionalization process in Africa. Her nomination has the consensus support of the membership in this region. Unfortunately, today, Bololona could not join us live. So again, I'm gonna read her bio.
No,
so
I'm
Bololona,
here. I'm here.
Hello, I didn't see you. Okay, great. Then go ahead. Thank you, Bololona. Thank you. Because you're under Christian's name. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Bonjour.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's not my name that is here because I am in Morocco now as we stand also, and with the regional coordinators of Africa. We are currently in Morocco. Of course, I'm in a site, you know, just in Morocco. As you can see behind the screen, I am Bololuno. I have been working for about 25 years for the acknowledgement of the contribution, positive contribution of the communities with the conservation of the nature and also of life, territories of life. And also I have been engaged in helping to acknowledge the roles and responsibilities of the communities and in the promotion of the lively means sustainable livelihood and also in the governance of their heritage and then territories of life. I'm a member of ICCA from the beginning, from the inception. I have been the member of the Global Council in 2016 as a treasury for 3 years and was representative of Francophone Africa, but with regionalization, the members of the region, they wanted us to create a kind of Madagascar and the Indian Ocean region, and I have been requested to orientate them and in helping them develop their strategies and actions. So I have accepted for my last term. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your very lovely attention. Over to you.
Merci beaucoup, Lolona. C'est bien de te voir ici. So now, fourth, we have José Marcial Vetoulet. I will read his bio, unless he's here as well in disguise. José Marcial is standing for his first term as regional representative for Central Africa, as well in a new revised role. His nomination has the consensus support of the membership in his region. José Marcial could not join us live today because he's in Morocco for a meeting with other consortium members and regional coordinators for Africa. So, José Marcial.
Bonjour. Oui. Ok, c'est comme dit Lolona.
As you say,
Maroc.
We are also in Morocco. We are all in Morocco. So
avec les collègues parce que on a
with the colleagues because we have a very serious connectivity.
Donc, je suis José Marcial
José Marcial Boutu, as you said.
Je travaille depuis
I work
15
for
ans
about
avec
15 years with the association
la valorisation de la
in
culture
the mobilization of the
traditionnelle
future.
et aussi
We have
notamment
trouble getting him,
les territoires de vie.
For the life territories, we have been working on helping them also, and the structures of Amnesia. I am
ravi de
very
ce que mes
delighted
pairs ont
that my peers have accepted me to be the nominee and to this council of the sub-region of Central Africa. So thank you very much for the trust and looking forward to the results.
Merci beaucoup, José. Merci. Okay, so now we will move all the way to South America. We have Xaviera, who is standing for his first term as regional representative for the Andes and Southern Cone. His nomination has the consensus support of the membership in this region. And so I invite Javier to read his bio and introduce himself.
Hola.
So as I was saying, we fostered the creation of Mapulawal Indigenous Park Network in 2005, which today is an indigenous conservation territory formed by 9 communities conforming the Mapulawal territory. I have been chair for 4 years in Mapulawal Association. I have been a member of the ICC consortium, and I have belonged to the creation of the Association for Initiatives and Thriving Conservation in original countries, and I have been vice president for 2 consecutive periods. In 2014, the committee was internationally acknowledged through the program Equatorial Initiative, participating in the Climate Summit of United Nations and the Global Conference in Indigenous People in New York. And I was also part of the Nature Fauna Council of Chile. And now we are working in different activities in the Global South. That's it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Javier. It was a pleasure.
Okay, now changing to English. Last but not least, we have Luis Guillermo Izquierdo, who was nominated for his first term as regional representative for the Amazon. His nomination had the consensus support of the membership in this region. However, we understand there were some last-minute discussions amongst the membership in Latin America. So we would like to hear from colleagues in Latin America about the current status of this discussion. Maybe Javier or Carolina Rodriguez, could you please share some brief remarks, keeping in mind our time constraints today?
Oui, bonjour à tout le monde. Merci aussi à Javier.
For the support. So last night we had a meeting with our colleagues from Latin America. And we defined 4 points we would like to share with all of you. And I give the floor to Luis Guillermo later. As Latin America region, we would like to propose to the Global Directive Council to include different presidents from regional councils where they are, because each region is different in the organizational process. And in this case, as the Global Council of Latin America is Luis Guillermo Izquierdo, if we have the option and we pass it, we will nominate him to belong to the Global Directive Council. If that's possible for this period, we would ask the Secretary and the Directive Council a short period to define as a sub-region, Amazon sub-region, a new representative for this sub-region in order to take decisions in a collective way. If including the president of the regional council where it is in each region, might wait for next period nomination process, we keep the representation for Amazon region with Luis Guillermo. And last, we would like to inform you that from Latin American region, we will define new sessions in order to redefine the regionalization structure from a geographical and organization point of view, taking into account this is the current proposal. So I give the floor to Luis Guillermo now. Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you very much, Carolina. Thank you to the Secretary and all the people who made possible this meeting and talk in this General Assembly. So, first of all, I would like to say, as a person, that I thank you for taking us into account and being part of the ICCA consortium and different members from different continents. And regarding the 4 proposals and 4 points we have just shown the colleagues, it's the result of consensus we talked yesterday in our meeting, and those are the conclusions, and I agree with them, as Carolina said. However, I would like to add that this proposal appears a need in our region, and from an organizational and geographical point of view, we are sure that through the organization, and if we improve the structure, everything will lead us to achieve all the activities in a certain way, implement in a better way. Sorry, the sound is very bad. We can hardly hear him. I'm really sorry. We will be able to talk about regionalization and achieve all the different activities. I would like to add this point, and the General Assembly can take into account the 4 points read by our colleague. Thank you very much, and we will wait for your answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaëlle. Thank you very much, Luis. And thanks all the nominees. Now, for the General Assembly participants, we have a chance to ask the nominees any clarifying questions that we may have. Please raise your hand in Zoom to speak or ask in the chat box. I'm seeing no hands raised and no comments in the chat box. So I'll now ask Gaëlle from our Secretariat to move the nominees into the virtual waiting room in Zoom so we can discuss their nominations further. I'll just leave a moment for the...
Colin, I'm super sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, sorry.
I just wanted to check, just in light of what was just shared about the Amazon Latin American representation, if you wanted to speak briefly about how that will be handled before the rest of the nominations proceed.
I had thought that we would come to that when we get to Luis's specific nomination, but I guess now is an opening to do that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, well, either to address that briefly or only have the 5 nominees, not Luis Guillermo, but maybe just briefly to respond to the proposed way forward from the Latin American membership in terms of how the current council, may consider revising the composition and having a new position, etc. I think that was one of the questions they asked for consideration of before proceeding with electing Luis Guillermo in the Amazon rep role, if I understood correctly.
Okay. Yes, I'm sorry. Maybe it was out of step logically here. So if we were to if council is to no, procedurally now I'm thinking, do we need to have more time for discussion on the proposal to have the overarching Latin American representation come on in this form? Is that something we can do, we can accept now as a General Assembly? Or does it need discussion at council level? I believe that the governance procedures allow us to do this, to make this modification. So is that something that is understood and that can be acted on today? And if that's the case, then I guess we must await a nomination for the Amazon region. Would that be correct?
Yeah, so just to say there are 2 options, basically. If there is a sense that more discussion is needed in the Latin American membership, or if the membership in the past 24 hours is really happy to proceed with this, there's full agreement that there needs to be this additional regional role in the Global Council. It is procedurally possible, for sure, for the General Assembly today to, well, I think it's possible, never had to deal with this before, to make that change on the spot. It is also possible for the Council to make that change to the governance procedures after this GA session. So if there is more time needed, more discussion needed for whatever reason, there is a kind of a backup option that the council can consider and adopt this revision to the composition question. So it's more a question, I think, at this stage of whether there needs to be more time for discussion. If so, then I suggest the council considers this in the next 1 to 2 weeks. And then I'm sure it can be resolved smoothly. If there is full agreement now and people want to proceed now, then go for it. I think it's a little bit
okay. We'll get a sense of the meeting then. And Aqua has a hand up. Please go ahead. I'm sorry.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Wilson Kipkazi from Kenya, representing the Elorza indigenous community. On that subject that you've introduced, I think we may not have time as a general council to discuss because we need details to be given by the Secretariat in advance so that we interrogate and we be advised accordingly. So we need a technical advice before the General Assembly, because as General Assembly, what are we discussing if we have not been furnished with information by the Secretariat and probably the technical team? So I propose we can give time 2 weeks or so, then we discuss before the next General Assembly on 28. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Wilson. As I understand it, this proposal came together from the region only in the last several hours. So there wasn't, in fact, time for the Secretariat to circulate information about it. And you make a perfectly valid point that we perhaps should not rush this, that it may have implications as well for how other regions may want to be represented. So I think it is wise to to defer the discussion. And either to defer it to the last session of the General Assembly, or to put it into the hands of the Council in the meantime to define the way forward and get some thoughts out to the general membership about any policy implications. And in that case, then, should we, excuse me, in the meantime, should we then, Luis, would you want to be confirmed for the Amazon region, or should we keep both the overarching position and the Amazon region question open until and deal with them together?
I would propose we keep to all of it until we resolve together. Thank you.
Okay. If there are no other comments or suggestions on this line, I'm sorry, Holly, go ahead.
Sorry, Colin, I just wanted to flag that was Wilson from the Endorice in Kenya. That was not Luis Guillermo, the nominee.
Of course, yeah. Luis did.
Yeah.
I didn't leave enough time for Luis to perhaps to intervene. ¿Algún comentario, Luis?
Hi, yes, everyone, thank you. I don't know if I understand it well, but I thought Holly was about to say something, or... Okay, no, yes, I'm gonna talk. So I think that Sorry, I think as a Latin American network and what we have been talking about in the framework of the Global Council, maybe we can analyze and take some decision about the decision and about the nomination in which respects to me about the Amazon region. I think that in the point that we are right now, until it's defined, the proposal that the Latin American Council can have through the chairs, like a place in this kind of council, we can walk towards to the nomination. We want to go forward with a nomination. As me, as a sub-region, maybe opening the floor in order to analyze in the framework of this assembly, maybe saying like this kind of new place that Latin America will have about the delegate of the council that we have been talking about and that we have been putting into work. And maybe my comment on that will be that, to sum up, the exclusive nomination of the new proposal of the president or chair that's gonna direct this council that we're talking about. So, sorry, I'm losing him. Sorry, he's having trouble with. Okay. We will apply the process to make that position free of the sub-region, and we as the Amazon will try to do it in the framework of the council, the new. Well, sorry about my connection. I am in an area which I don't have a good signal, but so far we wanted to have the nomination of myself as a sub-region, but yet we haven't defined the new place of the framework of the council, that the executive council will have that, and if they review that, we'll take to review this process that can allow the place for the new person that's going to come to that role.
Okay, thank you, Luis, for those clarifications. Your voice did cut out at a couple of points, so correct me if I'm wrong here. But you then would, under the circumstances, would prefer to have your nomination for the Amazon region stand and be considered now, and then the question of the overarching representation to be considered in due course. Is that understanding correct? Okay. Perfect. I see it as well in the chat. Thank you. So Carolina indicates in the chat, se mantiene como representante de la subregión Amazonia mientras se define el lugar de los presidentes de Sorry, I lost, I had my translation on and lost my own words here. I'll switch out. So let's proceed to the breakout. I guess the candidates, the nominees, go to the waiting room.
Yes, just give me 1 minute.
Are we good?
I'm still here.
No, because as we are, other colleagues are accepting them while I'm removing them. So please don't accept the nominees that I'm putting in the waiting room. Thanks. Okay, I think we're good because Jose Marcial has left and the other 4 candidates are in the waiting room.
Okay, thank you, Gaëlle. Does anyone have any objections to any of these nominees or any final questions or concerns? If you would like to share your general support, you can do so in the Zoom chat box. And if we don't hear anything from any of you, your consent is assumed. All right, I think that is unanimity. So we have consensus on all of the candidates. And I will ask Gaëlle to welcome the nominees back to the room. And if you could just let me know, Gaëlle, when everyone is back in.
Yes, we have everyone back.
Okay, thank you. Welcome back, nominees. As no objections whatsoever were raised, we will now proceed to formally approving your election. Congratulations. And I will ask for a motion to approve the election of Ibec, Marco, Vololona, Jose Marcial, and Javier, and Luis Guillermo. We need a proposer and a seconder.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Was it Femi who moved and?
On behalf of Semipos, Olivia Doyle.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And then Giovanni was the seconder. Thank you. Okay, seeing no hand, there was a hand raised there momentarily, but it's gone. So with that, we can confirm consensus support for our new regional representatives to be elected to either their first, second, or third terms in the Global Council. Congratulations. Thanks to each of you. Would any of our newly elected or re-elected council members like to say some brief final remarks. Thank you. I guess everyone is conscious of time. We're trying to get back a little bit on schedule here. So we have we've now reached the final agenda item for today's session. It should not take very long, so bear with us for just a bit longer to ensure we can maintain quorum. We will now consider the appointment of the Auditor of Accounts and Ombudsperson. As a bit of a background, the Auditor of Accounts is one of the three organs of the association, in addition to the General Assembly and the Council. According to our statutes, the Auditor of Accounts shall check the operating and annual accounts prepared by the Council and present a written report to the General Assembly. As per the statutes, the Auditor of Accounts may also act as Ombudsperson. The Ombudsperson supports the association in a voluntary capacity by serving as a fair and neutral arbiter when dealing with complaints or grievances. I would like to acknowledge Marc Foggin's contribution as Auditor of Accounts and Ombudsperson since the General Assembly at the end of 2019. Within the membership, Marc is an honorary member and with the Member Plateau Perspectives, and is actively involved in supporting work in Central Asia, among other things. We're very grateful for the work he's done as Auditor of Accounts and Ombudsperson through 2020, 2021, and 2022. And he has very kindly agreed to be appointed again in this role for the coming year. We've not received any other proposals. As noted in the governance procedures, the term is for 1 year at a time. Does anyone have any clarifying questions or objections to this appointment? If so, please raise your hand or enter them in the chat box. Seeing no hands raised and no entry in the chat box, may I ask for a motion to approve and a seconder? Thank you. On the Roi Welfare Council, I'm sorry, it's Wilson.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, Wilson. Yeah, thank you. My name is Wilson Kipkazi. I propose. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I do second, if I can, as an honorary member.
I believe we need a member on this one.
I second. This is Femi from NTFB.
Thank you, Femi. Okay, so that is confirmed. Congratulations, Marc. And with that, we have covered all agenda items in today's General Assembly session. Thanks, everyone, for your active participation. And join us next week for 2 special membership engagement events. On Tuesday, June the 6th, we will discuss the latest draft of our manifesto for Territories of Life. And on Thursday, June the 8th, we will discuss key findings and insights so far from the organizational reflection and revisioning process with Maliasili. Both events are great opportunities to learn more about the bigger picture context of the consortium and to help inform how our association will evolve in coming years. Two very key and important processes. The fourth and final session of this year's General Assembly will be on June 28th at the same hour. That session will include more council elections, the 2023 action plan and budget, and hopefully we will conclude the General Assembly by approving our new manifesto. Look out for emails from Xaviera, our administrative coordinator in the Secretariat, and others about these upcoming meetings and related preparations, including getting to know the council nominees and contributing to consensus-based decisions in advance via Lumio. Finally, I would like to thank the interpreters who have brilliantly supported us to communicate in 5 languages today. Ivana, excuse me, Barry, Daniela, Elena Bonfiglioli and Elena Kreuzberg, Raquel, Rachel, and Sylvia. That concludes this session of the General Assembly, and see you all later and soon.